Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia is joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. And, Dave, the big news earlier today, Jordan Davis's fifth-year option on his rookie contract gets picked up. What is your reaction to hearing that news?
Hey, guys, yeah, I mean, it's not very surprising. It sounds like a lot of money for a guy like Jordan Davis, who was the 13th pick and probably definitely hasn't lived up to where he was drafted. But he's been a functional player. He has been solid in the interior of that defensive line. And $12.9 million in 1 year sounds like a lot, but when you look at what defensive tackles get paid across the league, it's not super prohibitive. Ideally, this would have been the time this offseason to give him that big extension. And if he had really been everything the Eagles hoped when they traded up to take him with the 13th pick, but his career just hasn't really gone to that level. So I think it makes sense. You keep him around now through 2026, and you're still hoping that he can reach that full potential. The Eagles are still bullish on Jordan Davis, and he's been like a really solid run stuffer, which, that was his floor coming into the league, was that he's going to be kind of a specialist type of player who does one thing. But, the real potential with him was that he could eventually rush the passer too. We've seen glimpses of it. We saw it in the playoffs this past season. He had a sack in the NFC Championship game. He had one in the Super Bowl. He didn't have that many all season. He had one in the regular season. So the Eagles look at him like maybe there's still more potential left in him, and they're going to get at least one more extra year to figure that out.
So earlier in the show, Dave, we were talking about what production we'd have to see from Davis over the next 2 years to really pay off this decision. And we were looking at about 60% of snaps played and somewhere around 8 sacks over the next 2 years, not each, but both combined. Does that feel like a fair spot to look at, or is that too lofty?
Honestly, I think that's too lofty if we're just talking about being worth this chunk of $13 million, which, like I said, it sounds like a lot, but you're talking, like, even if you get league average play at that position, it's an expensive position. Sometimes the sack numbers don't always tell you the full story. I think he can be productive without getting huge sack numbers. He can rush the passer a little more effectively. I'm curious to see what happens with his snap count. It actually went down in 2024, and I think the reason for that is the Eagles ran way less five-man fronts than they did under previous defensive coordinators. So he was still in there in the four-man fronts, kind of as a run-stuffing interior lineman, but wasn't a pure nose all the time, a pure nose tackle. So, I think that there are going to be some opportunities for him to rush the passer on third down. When you think about it, why would he be out there on third down when you have Jalen Carter and Milton Williams? That those two made more sense when you're talking about third down getting after the passer. Without Milton Williams, I'm curious to see who those snaps go to. Moro Ujima is the next logical choice. They also drafted Ty Robinson, but I would imagine we'll see Jordan Davis on some more passing downs this season.
Now, there's still one issue out there on offense, and that's Dallas Goedert. What do you think is going to happen with that whole situation?
Yeah, it's really like the one thing that's kind of hovering over this team right now, and we thought maybe there'd be some sort of resolution during the draft, and it didn't come. Look, I think the fact that they didn't draft the tight end makes it a little more likely that he's back this year. Now, it really comes down to, can they find some sort of common ground? Because the situation is pretty simple. He's due a bunch of money. None of it's guaranteed. And, he would need to basically accept a pay cut this season to come back. I think there's one avenue where it kind of plays out like the Josh Sweat thing did last year, where, he looks around and says, all right, there's not really the value I have of myself in the rest of the league. Let's figure something out for this year. Let's find the number that works for both sides. And then Dallas Goedert can bet on himself and try to hit the market next year and cash out. I think that might be the best way to resolve this for both sides, honestly. I mean, I know that, the George Kittle contract comes down this week, and I've had people ask me, what does that mean for Dallas Goedert? And I'm not sure it means much at all. I mean, Kittle's older, but he's also been a better player, and he's been more durable. So I still think that it would really behoove both sides to find a way to make this work. Because, look, if you're the Eagles, this is a team that wants to compete for a Super Bowl this year. They have the talent especially on offense, to do that, to run it back. And I think you got to be real careful to go into this season with something you can rely on. And right now, if they don't have Dallas Goedert, I don't think they have enough at tight end.
Yeah, that was just what I was going to ask. It does feel light at the position, and they didn't address it in the draft. Now, your overall thoughts on the Eagles draft, since we haven't talked to you since the entirety of it concluded. Did this feel like a successful draft once again for Howie Roseman and company?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we won't really know, but a really good value with Jahad Campbell at 31 overall. Very curious to see where they play him and how they utilize his skills. But, even if the floor for Jahad Campbell is that he's a really good linebacker, an off-ball linebacker in the league, that's a fine use of the 31st pick. And he has all the upside, right? He has the upside of being a pass rusher and using him in certain situations like that. So I think that's an intriguing pick, a fun one. You have to kind of just trust their medical evaluation without knowing all the specifics of that. I think there's obviously a risk involved there because other teams did not draft him because they were worried about his medicals. But, hey, if the Eagles trust it and they think he's going to be fine, we'll have to take their word for it there. After that, Andrew Makuba in the second round, I think he's going to be a starter this year unless they bring someone else in. It's going to come down to a competition between him and Sidney Brown, and right now I'd have him in the lead for that spot. Undersized safety, sure, but he doesn't play like it. Really hard-nosed, gets after it. Honestly, it's right there sitting for us. He does kind of remind you, play style-wise, of C.J. Gardner-Johnson a little bit, who he'll end up replacing most likely. Then after that, you end up with a bunch of day 3 picks that, we'll see. I think Ty Robinson has the ability to be a contributor in year one. 24-year-old defensive tackle. Really experienced in college, had really just 1 year of production, which gives you a little bit of pause, but I think in a rotation he'll be fine. Smile Munden from Georgia, I think, will be a big special teams contributor. And then, you end up with 3 developmental offensive linemen. I don't know how much they'll play as rookies, but you like the idea of just bringing in developmental players for Jeff Stoutland to work with.
We're talking to Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia. Dave, Jahad Campbell, are there any concerns about his injuries right now?
It depends on who you ask. I mean,
he obviously fell down from possibly a 19th pick to 31. I guess there would be some concerns from a fan base at least.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Eagles aren't concerned if they're trusting their medicals, which they obviously did. But, whenever a player slides in the draft because of medical concerns, I think there's reason to be concerned. But we've seen this work out for the Eagles, too. They've drafted players before who slid farther than they should have. Think about Landon Dickerson, right? All these injuries in college, the Eagles draft him, and he's been a perennial Pro Bowler, has been really durable in his NFL career. So there are some success stories here where, the medicals might not check out for some teams, but they check out for you, and you bring a player in, and he ends up being healthy in the league. That does happen. So I think there's some natural concern there because he was like a consensus top 15 player for most draft evaluators, and then the Eagles get him at 31. There's a reason for that. So that's in the back of your mind, and it's not even like, I think those concerns are about this year too. It's like, is he going to miss the spring? Is he going to miss some training camp? How effective is he going to be in year one? All those questions are real, but the Eagles will tell you they didn't draft him for just this year. They think he's going to be a part of the team for a long time.
Well, great stuff, Dave. As always, we really appreciate your time, as we always do here on the afternoon show. Thank you for checking in, and we'll be talking to you down the road.
All right, guys, take care.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching, listening in. I want you to like, subscribe, do what you have to do to kind of stay on focus with us. Also, we also have plenty of other content that goes on here on YouTube. So go to that, like that, subscribe to that. And also you can catch us on the afternoon show 2 to 6, Monday through Friday, 97.5 The Fanatic, 97.5thefanatic.com, and NBC Sports Philadelphia.